Hello and welcome. This is Cheryl. Thank you so much for joining me today. In this video, I'm creating some Lavender Lemonade die cut cards using two different collections. This is the Lavender Fields Hexagons die set, part of a Simple Stories Lavender Fields line. And the next is from another Simple Stories line called Pink Lemonade. This here is the Pink Lemonade stand tags, and then we have the Pink Lemonade stand die set. So I'm going to create three different cards, all of them different die cut cards, and I'm going to combine the sets together because I thought they really worked well together. So I have a bunch of pieces here die cut. I have the hexagons cut out of some fog cardstock for my little bumblebees. I love the bumblebees in this set. I have the bodies of them die cut out of some raven cardstock, and the little yellow pieces are die cut out of beeswax cardstock, and they go right underneath the die cut pieces to give you all of those bee details. There's also a wings die that I used with some vellum. I always love when it's bees or things that have like transparent wings. I always love using vellum for that. So I put the vellum wings in between the two pieces of the body, and then I set them aside with my acrylic block on top there, making sure that they glue nice and straight, nice and flat. For my hexagons, I'm going to do some light ink blending around the outside edges with some Hickory Smoke Distress ink. Just give it a little bit of visual dimension. This is a step that you could omit if you wanted. It doesn't add a ton of color to it, but it gives it a little bit of more of an interesting look to it. It darkens the outside edges to it. I just did 3 hexagons here, but you could do more if you wanted to cover the entire front. There are different sizes of hexagons. There are 3 different sizes, as well as an inlay piece to put some stitching detail on there. So I do have my stitching detail on these pieces. I always think those details are just ones that give them a little extra, like they take them to the next level. But if you don't like that detail, you can omit that. You can leave that inlay piece out and just have a plain hexagon. For this die set, there's some lavender sprigs. So I have those die cut out of Lavender Cardstock, and I'm using Color Shift ink in Lavender Fields to color the flowers. For my greenery, those are die cut out of some Rainforest Cardstock, and I'm using some Avocado Gold Color Shift ink for that, just to give it a little bit of color variation. The Color Shift inks are similar to the interference inks in that they have some shimmer properties to them, and they have a different look on light or white cardstock than they do on black or dark cardstock. But the Color Shift inks are a bit of a creamier blend, so they're great when you want to color or want to blend two colors in together. They blend together a lot easier than the interference inks, but they have a little bit of a chalky finish to them. So they're similar, but they're also completely different. I have a whole playlist with cards that I use Color Shift inks on, so you can check those out, and you can also check out the interference ink playlist if you want to see the differences between the two, because there is some differences. For this particular card, I'm actually going to put my pieces right onto my A2 card base. I'm using some Barely Art glue in a fine line bottle to glue those in place. And then I'm going to put my acrylic block on there just to make sure that it dries nice and flat and everything has good contact while it's drying. It just frees up my hands for working with other things as well. For the background for this card, I thought it would look nice with some splatter on it. So I'm using the Raven Splatter Effects. This is black, but it has a bit of a gold shimmer to it. There's also Sparkle Splatter Effects, which is transparent but has a bit of a silver shimmer to it. I thought the black for this one would coordinate nicely with those bumblebees and really bring out those details. And I just like the idea of the hexagons being very geometrical with that splatter background. So when I use that sparkle or the raven splatter accents, I make sure to shake it together really well, make sure that all that splatter or all that sparkle is mixed in really well. And then when I take that brush out of the bottle, I take some of the excess off so that I can control how much is on that brush. And then I just use my finger to tap on the handle to splatter that background. All of my die cut pieces are ready to go. So I'm going to put my lavender pieces on first, and then I'm going to scatter my little bumblebees around the outside of the card. So I'm focusing the lavender sprigs on the left side of the card, and I'm going to put my sentiment below so that it kind of covers the bottoms of the stems. I'll typically put a sentiment over tops of the bottoms of the stems because that's the part of the card that I don't think is as important. And I typically don't like the look of those stem ends just hanging there. So I'll typically put a sentiment right over top of that just to kind of ground it a little bit. Once I have that lavender on there as well as the sentiment, I can scatter those bumblebees. And I always love to, when I use bumblebees or insects, I love them when they're facing different directions. So I make sure that they're facing in different directions. The one thing that I didn't mention is I did use my Hickory Smoke Distress pad around that sentiment just to give that a little bit of that gray edge there. And then our card is totally done. So that first card was mostly just using the Lavender Fields Hexagons die set. I did use the Pink Lemonade stand tags for the sentiment because that first die set doesn't have a sentiment with it. For this card here, I'm combining all three sets. I have the Lemonade jug and glass. That is from the Lemonade stand die set. We have a sentiment from the Lemonade stand tags die set. And then I'm also using some hexagons from the Lavender Fields hexagons as well as the lavender. I thought it would be fun to do some lavender iced tea. So the drink part for the inside of the jug as well as the glasses is die cut out of some lavender cardstock. And then we have there's little lemons that you can die cut from that lemonade stand die set. There's lemons and there's also strawberries. I didn't use any strawberries in any one of these cards, but you could switch this up from lavender lemonade to pink lemonade or strawberry lemonade if you want to. For the little drink piece that is die cut of the Lavender Cardstock, I use the Lavender Fields Color Shift ink to give it a little bit of color variation. It also has that little bit of shimmer to it, using my sticky mat to hold those pieces in place while I'm doing that ink blending. And now we can glue all of those pieces together. When it came time for that jug, it's die cut out of fog cardstock, but I wanted it to have some visual dimension to it. So I did use some Hickory Smoke Distress ink to do that ink blending. But because these pieces are fairly small, I just held them in my hand and just used whatever ink was on those brushes. I didn't add any extra ink to it. Then for the little lemon wedges, I had to have a couple that I did off screen. I just used that same hickory smoke brush just to give it a little bit of darkness around the outside edges. The two layers are die cut out of that Beeswax Cardstock, so there's not really any color variation there, but you could do one of the layers out of a darker color if you wanted to give it some color variation. I had forgotten to do the straw, so thank heavens the liquid glue doesn't set really quickly. It sets fairly quickly, but I still had time to lift those pieces up and put that straw into the glass. And then I did the layers for those hexagons, so those are ready to go. For the background, I thought it would be fun to use this lemon fresco embossing folder. This one came out last spring and it has some lemons and lemon leaves around on the background, and I thought it worked perfect for the pink lemonade dies as well as the jug. So this is just going to add some pattern to the background. I'm not inking it or anything. It's just going to add that pattern to that background. For the mat for this card, I have it trimmed down to 4 inches by 5 1/4 inches, and that's done with that Lavender cardstock. And then my embossed piece is trimmed down to 3 3/4 inches by 5 inches. And I'm just using that Hickory Smoke Distressing just around the outside edges, just a touch, just a little kiss of color. I don't really want to bring out that background, but I do want it to coordinate nicely with the ink blending on the hexagons for my background. So once again, I'm working on an A2 card base here. We can glue down our mat. And I'm using that liquid glue for all of my pieces here today. I want to make sure that I have the time and the room to move and shimmy things in place. That's one of my favorite part about liquid glues is you can move things into place so that you get some perfect placement. With those 2 layers done, I have my acrylic block on there holding everything in place. And one of the things that I typically like to do is I like to kind of lay my pieces out over top of my acrylic block so that I can see exactly how it's going to look on my background. And then especially if it's a floral or a bunch of floral pieces, I can lift all of that up and not move my little arrangement so I can keep it intact until I'm ready to start gluing things in place. Then I glue my sentiment down as well as those hexagons, and then I can glue down my little lavender lemonade there. I do the jug first, and then I have a couple sprigs of lavender that I'm going to put between the jugs and the glass. I wanted to do the lavender lemonade just because it ties those 2 sets together, and it's not something you typically see very often. I think pink lemonade would be fun as well, but I thought the purple and the yellow together just kind of complement each other really nicely. So once I have all of those pieces together, I'll put my acrylic block on there just to hold everything down while it's gluing down, especially with those lavender sprigs. It gives it a little bit of bumpiness behind that glass, so I want to make sure it's nice and flat while it's drying. For the last card, the main pieces I'm using are the Pink Lemonade stand die set, but I do have one of the sentiments from the Pink Lemonade stand tags die set. So I have a piece here that is die cut out of Raven cardstock. I'm doing some random ink blending with the Natural Pearl ink pad from Lisa Horton Crafts. This is supposed to look like a chalkboard, so I want it to look like there has been some chalk writing on there that's been rubbed off, but it hasn't been cleaned very well. So I'm just using that Natural Pearl pad on there for that. It is going to give it a little bit of shimmer as well. If you don't like that, you could always use a white pad. That's not really a stark white on there, but I like the look of that shimmer. It just adds a little bit of a different texture to that cardstock. For this card here, I have the I Picked You sentiment from the Pink Lemonade stand tags set, and I'm also using the Hello sentiment from the Pink Lemonade stand set. There are wood pieces that go around the chalkboard, so I just did some ground espresso, no, scorched timber on them just to give them a little bit of color variation. Once I have all of my little die cut pieces assembled together, I'll put those to the side. And for this card, rather than putting this onto an A2 card base, because the outside edges to that lemonade stand piece are almost an A2 card size, I thought I would just make a shaped card. It's a little bit smaller than an A2 card size, but still, I always love shaped cards because there's just something unexpected, something that you don't get when you go shopping for pre-made cards. Just a fun way to create cards. So the back part of this is die cut out of Acorn Cardstock as well as those wood pieces. The chalkboard part is die cut out of that Raven cardstock, and that was ink blended. And then we can put the frame on the front there. So the top and the bottom match perfectly, and then there's some side pieces that just insert into those two sides perfectly. So I'd put the top on first, then the bottom, and then I can insert those two pieces on the side there. Now I kept this card really, really simple and just have the Hello, I Pick You sentiment. And then I also have some lemon die cuts as well as lemon leaves from that Pink Lemonade stand die set. Again, you could put some strawberries on here from the that same set. There's also some ribbon banners or some pennant flag banners that you can also add on there to decorate. So there's a few different ways that you can decorate it. I think this would also look really great with this Pink Lemonade stand background for the card, and then that lemonade jug and the glass like we did on the last card on that stand. I think it would be great to do that way as well. So many different ways that you can mix and match these all together. Once I put my I Pick You pennant or tag down there, then I put the Hello there, and I want to put these lemons in a little bit of a cluster right beside that Hello. So I put the first one down, then I put one of the leaves. I had 3 clusters of leaves and then 2 lemons. So one of those leaves is going to go behind there. The other lemon is going to get tucked behind that one as well. So the one that is on that background there is going to stay kind of lowest, and then the other one is going to get tucked under there. Then we put our acrylic block on there and make sure it's all nice and dried. And here is the finished card. And again, I love shaped cards because they just give you something a little bit different, a little bit non-traditional, but they're really quite easy to do. Just requires cutting the shape twice, scoring one of them, and in this case I scored it at the 4.5 inch mark. Then I glued on top of that score line, and we already have a card base to decorate. Then we have our second card here with that Lavender Lemonade, and I love the look of the Lavender Lemonade, the lemonade in the purple color. It's just, again, not traditional and just something a little bit unexpected. And then our very first cards, I absolutely adore those bees. I have a feeling I'm going to be using those bees a lot because they're just so darn cute and they've got a lot of detail to them. You'll find all the products I used listed and linked down in the description box below. Thank you so much for spending your time with me. I really appreciate all the time that you're here, and I hope you have a fantastic day.